What happens to your awareness in the exact moment your heart stops beating and your brain physically shuts down? Materialist science operates on the assumption that your brain generates your consciousness. According to this model, when the biological machine stops firing, your awareness should simply fade to black. But look at this chart mapping biological function against patient experiences. When the red EKG line drops to 0, we see a massive anomaly. Instead of nothingness, thousands of patients produce this sharply rising curve, reporting a sudden spike in cognitive clarity. These patients are not describing a dark, chaotic sensory failure. They are coming back with highly structured memories, accurately recalling specific conversations and events that took place in the room while they possessed zero measurable brain activity. Reconciling this zero brain activity with such vivid recall requires us to investigate if our current model of consciousness is missing a piece. We can trace the modern study of this anomaly back to the 1970s. A psychiatrist named Dr. Raymond Moody began treating these reports as rigorous data, gathering thousands of accounts from resuscitated patients across different cultures and belief systems. Moody identified 12 highly consistent recurring structural elements that appeared in these reports, regardless of the patient's age or religion. This data suggested a structured process rather than a random biological glitch. Almost universally, patients describe an out-of-body phase. They report separating from their physical form, floating near the ceiling, and calmly watching the doctors attempt to revive them with a level of sensory alertness sharper than normal waking life. From there, the reports detail a profound emotional transition. The panic of dying dissolves into an unshakable sense of peace, often accompanied by an encounter with a brilliant mystical light. Then comes the life review. Patients describe their entire past flashing before them, but with a specific mechanical twist. They feel the impact of their actions through the immediate emotional perspective of the people they affected. The consistency of these 12 stages across thousands of unrelated people suggests we are looking at a repeatable architectural phenomenon that demands a rigorous explanation. Let us look at the first framework we use to evaluate this data, the conventional biological theory, which views the brain as a generator that creates consciousness. The primary scientific argument here is hypoxia. When a dying brain is starved of oxygen, it triggers a final release of neurochemicals. This chemical surge theory effectively accounts for basic physiological anomalies. A flood of endorphins and oxygen deprivation can explain why a patient might perceive tunnel vision or sudden bright flashes of light. But the generator theory hits a wall when we look at the content of the experiences. Random chemical chaos in a failing organ cannot explain why the reports follow the same highly ordered 12-stage sequence every time. Furthermore, a surging oxygen-deprived brain offers no explanation for how flatlined patients acquire and verify accurate, real-world information from outside their immediate hospital room. The biological theory provides the comfort of conventional materialism, but it fails to account for the non-local data found in clinical reports. This brings us to an alternative framework, the filter theory. This model suggests that the brain acts as a reducing valve, filtering an expansive, eternal consciousness down into a tight, localized physical experience. Look at how this fits the clinical data. Shutting down the filter would naturally result in an expansion of awareness, exactly as patients report. We have an ancient, highly detailed map of this expanded intermediate state, documented in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, known as the Bardo. When modern ER patients report a disillusion of time and space and a move into an environment of boundless peace, they are describing the exact stages of limitlessness outlined by Tibetan monks thousands of years ago. The Bardo text introduces a psychological rule for this transition. In life, you make the mind. In death, the mind makes you. When the physical body drops away, your habitual thought patterns, unhealed traumas, and deepest fears instantly manifest into reality. The filter theory aligns modern clinical data with ancient Tibetan maps, suggesting our mind's current state dictates our ultimate transition. To test this alignment further, we can look to ancient India and see if completely separate historical texts corroborate the out-of-body data found in modern cardiology wards. The Katha Upanishad contains the story of a boy named Nachiketa who traveled beyond the mortal world to uncover the mystery of death. The core lesson he brought back was that the witnessing consciousness does not perish when the physical body dies. Now listen to a modern account from a cardiac patient. After flatlining and floating near the ceiling, he looked down at his body and described it as looking like old clothes thrown on the floor. He used the exact same metaphor delivered by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita thousands of years earlier, explaining that the eternal self abandons a worn-out body just as a person discards old clothing. When modern patients and ancient Hindu scriptures mirror each other perfectly, it suggests they are independently mapping the same territory of consciousness. How do you actually apply this data? Is there a way to test this framework without having to undergo a near-death experience yourself? We can look at the case of a 16-year-old boy named Venkataraman, who would later become the great sage Ramana Maharshi. Sitting in his uncle's house, he was suddenly paralyzed by an intense fear of his own death. Instead of avoiding the dread, he ran a psychological experiment. He stiffened his limbs, held his breath, and actively simulated the physical process of dying. As he observed his body lock up, he realized that a deep sense of I remained to observe the paralyzed body. His true nature was the witness watching the process, not the fragile physical shell going through it. By isolating and verifying the existence of this witness, he permanently removed his fear of death. He stripped the ego of its primary physical identity. This flowchart maps the decision you have regarding how you view your own perception of reality. The generator path provides the safety of biological certainty. But the trade-off is that you spend your life reacting to events on autopilot, carrying a lingering existential dread about the end. The filter path requires abandoning materialistic comfort. This path demands absolute responsibility for managing your thoughts and healing your traumas today, because you understand they shape your immediate reality. If consciousness is interconnected and your mind literally constructs your reality once the physical anchor drops, then resolving your karmic actions and clearing your resentments is an immediate practical necessity. Adopting this view allows you to interact with the world fiercely in the present moment, making decisions driven by unconditional love rather than anxiety. Near-death experiences offer a roadmap for our current existence. We can use this data to drop our fear and engage with the present moment more intentionally while we are still here.